But today's program is presented in conjunction with the National Society of Newspaper Columnists and Cincinnati SPJ. So we're really excited to have Bonnie. Bonnie is, I'll tell you a little bit more about her in a moment. She's a member of both organizations, but she really has a lot to say about pitching as a freelancer and tips that will help all of us in our daily work. So I'll tell you a little bit about Bonnie. She's an award-winning freelance writer. Many of us probably know her. She's a freelance writer and a columnist. She's a communications director for the National Society of Newspaper Columnists, a member of the Cincinnati Enquirer editorial board, and a board member for Cincinnati SPJ. She lives with her family in Northern Kentucky. We can find her on social media at Writer Bonnie on Twitter and writerbonnie.com. Bonnie, I will let you get started. And as you mentioned throughout the program, we have had a couple of questions. One question come in so far on the Q&A, but as you have questions that arise throughout the program, feel free to post those and we'll answer them throughout the program if we have opportunity, or if not, we'll get to those at the end. So thanks everyone for being here today, and special thanks to Cincy SPJ and NSNC for putting this program on, and to Bonnie for really being the star of the show today. So thank you, Bonnie.
Right, thank you very much, Jenny. I appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for realsies now. And let's make sure that everything goes according to plan. Haha, look at that. All right. So the way I thought that we would go through this today is I thought that I would take two recent pitches that have worked for me and take you through them start to finish, because really, and these are cold pitches. Once you get a relationship with an editor, it's really a lot easier to just kind of shoot ideas back and forth and brainstorm. But when you are going in cold and you've never worked with this editor or publication before, there are certain things that you can do to really boost your chances of being selected as one of their freelance writers for that project and to secure your relationship for ongoing projects. So we are going to go start to finish, two pitches, two assignments, completely cold. I didn't know anything about them. And we're going to start with Subaru Drive. And Subaru Drive is their lifestyle publication. I happen to have a Subaru and I love my Subaru, but you don't have to drive a Subaru to write for their lifestyle magazine. It's not about cars. It's about the culture that surrounds Subaru drivers and their branding, basically. Their culture branding, not their car branding. So we will start with Subaru Drive. This is where I found my pitch. And if you guys don't want to see the boxes in the corner, you can minimize those so they don't cover up the content of the slides if that is annoying to you. So this started out with Marissa Conrad is the editor, one of the editors at Subaru Drive. And she put this on Twitter. If you are not on Twitter, Twitter is the #1 place to find editors' calls for submissions. And it's a great way to get your foot in the door with cold submissions, because they will pitch what they were looking for and then you can jump onto that. If you are overwhelmed by the fact that you have to comb through Twitter to find these pitches, don't worry, because my resource sheet that we'll go through at the end will point you in the direction of people who curate that for you. So pitch me thread. I didn't copy the whole thread, but she basically, I'm assigning editing stories for Subaru Drive. And this is what I'm looking for: health, wellness, fitness, cooking, and more. It's Subaru owners, not the publication. It's $1 a word. And if you guys know anything about freelance, $1 a word is a pretty good rate. And you will find that $1 a word not only in the glossy New York publications, but also in these brand sponsored publications. And it's quality content and it pays well. So I would encourage you to pitch them. Drive's audience: active, outdoorsy, health-minded, adventurous people of all ages who are engaged in volunteering and helping their communities and love animals. It's a broad community, which is nice because it means I'm looking for a broad range of pitches. Okay, so I see this on Twitter. It's really easy to want to just fire off an email and go, me, but you've got to do your homework first. which takes me research before you pitch. That's my Subaru right there. So you want to go to their actual website and look at what they publish. I'm going to see if I can pull up here. Please tell me, Jenny, if I click on that, do you see the Subaru Drive website?
Yes.
Okay,
We do
good.
see
I
it.
wanted to make sure I could switch tab to tab without any issue. Okay, so this is where I went. First thing, and these are the things I look for. I'm like, okay, up here are their verticals: camping, community, environment, family, fitness, food. And what am I looking for? I'm looking not only for what types of articles that they're going for. I pulled up this one. What are they reported? Are they essays? Are they reported essays? What is the format and who's writing them? It's not just enough like this. Get your kicks. I pulled up, and this is the headline: Mother of three, Sarah Rentschler, describes many benefits of her children received from participating in non-contact martial arts. I already know that this is a reported essay because she is it's talking about a mom. She's talking about her kids, and she's using the I. Growing up, I watched both my brothers through traditional martial arts, so I know. And then up here, I can go through family, filter my selections. But you also, when you go through here, you want to read. One of the most important things to read as a freelancer is their byline. Where is her byline? And that's curious, which tells me. Now I know there's a byline on mine, so there should be. I shouldn't say that. It's not published yet. It's out. It's finished. Here's an owner spotlight. Let me see if I can find. You know what? Oh, about the author right here. So you want to make sure he's an automotive journalist, car enthusiast. So you want to see who they're hiring to write these articles. This was a profile, and obviously you kind of cater your bio to that, to whomever is you're publishing for. You tweak you can use your same bio for everything, but like obviously for this bio, I'm going to mention that I'm a Subaru driver and I love my Subi kind of thing. So those are the kinds of things that you want to look for. You are they looking for credentials beyond writer? Are they looking for a specialist in their field, a celebrity? What exactly are they looking for in their writers? And you're going to find that by researching the publication before you actually pitch. So you also want to read the writer's guidelines. Make sure you read the writer's guidelines so you know how to pitch. And I think I put their writer's guidelines in that resource sheet that I sent to you. Oh, there's my flowers in the back of my Subaru. So I'm a gardener. And so what I wanted to send them really lined up with what they were looking for, because they said environment, they said community, they said family. So I latched onto that and I started with my pitch. So the elements of the pitch. Yes. Do we have a question?
We have some questions rolling. Yeah, we have a question rolling in. I wondered if you might want to address it now.
Sure.
Susan asks, what is a reported essay?
Okay, a reported essay means, and you'll see it in the assignment when I show it to you at the end here, but a reported essay means that it is personal experience, but you bring in expertise other than your own. It's not strictly you piggyback. It's using your personal experience to tie it to expert advice and expert solutions, and weave it together. So it's a way of stringing your narrative through facts and advice from experts, not yourself. Was there
Thank you
question?
For answering that question.
Mm-hmm.
One more question. How do you know who to follow on Twitter to find the pitches? And this comes from Renee.
Okay, Renee, we are going to get to that at the very end, I promise you. And I'll run through all of that at the end. But yes, I will tell you how to pitch and where to find those pitches. Don't worry. But let's dive into, you found it on Twitter, however you found it, and we'll get to that later. And then let's dive into what the elements of a pitch are. Are there any other questions I need to address right now, Jenny? I think we're good.
Related to reported essays, Anne is asking, link to research, reported essays, is it linked to research or do they require interviews?
Both. It depends on the assignment. And sometimes both in the same assignment. And some publications want at least 2 or 3 sources, and some publications are okay if you interview one expert and do it that way. It's just like, think of any other reported piece you might do, any other freelance service piece you might do. You're going to do the interviews and find the research as it's required. You're just going to take your personal narrative and weave it through. I think of it almost as an extension of a column, because if you think of a column, a lot of times, or an op-ed even, you tie your personal experience to current events and you weave that through to help people really understand. But what the reported essay will do is that same thing. It's just not going to be as timely as you would say an op-ed or something like that, if that makes sense. Your assignment will dictate what research and what experts you need to worry about. And in the pitch, you might want to have those in mind if you're going to pitch a reported essay, of who you're going to talk to. But as you'll see when we go through this, we'll clarify. So let's start with number 1, the headline. Well, first, elements of the pitch: headline, hook, what, which is just a little bit more from the hook, what you're going to do. That's when you would say it's a reported essay or whatever. And number 4 is the why now. And number 5 is why me. And I'm going to go through these one at a time. So we'll start with number 1, the headline. The headline in a pitch is going to be the subject line of your email, because you want to grab the editor's attention, you want to pique their interest, and that subject line should already show them how what you propose to write will fit into their publication. A lot of times, editors will rely on a suggested headline, or you can put that suggested headline in your pitch as well. But for me, it's just the subject line. And I always put pitch so they know that they're looking at a pitch, because they get so many emails. You need to call out the fact that you are pitching them right now. And then it should be something that could be a headline. Mine was, we're ditching our lawn for green infrastructure at home. That automatically tells them what we're talking about. We're, which means it's going to be personal perspective. And we're talking about gardening, and we're talking about environmental endeavors in your own backyard. So, so that's your headline. Okay, the hook. And the hook, the headline's the most important almost, because that's what gets them to open the email. The hook is your very first thing that you grab them, because if you don't hook them, they're going to go. And that is a further introduction of what you're going to be writing. And it's not enough to explain what you want to write. You need to show them your intended tone. Example: Subaru Drive Writer's Guidelines describe their tone as light without being fluffy, respectful while still being fun. You've done your homework. You've read a few of their articles. You should know what that looks like for them. So you need to understand your publication's tone before pitching them. So why am I not? Oh, now why in the world? There we go. The hook. I clicked both times. Here we go. Megan and Marissa, those are the 2 editors. And I only showed you one of the tweets, but they both tweeted that they were looking. Marissa reports to Megan, so I included them both in my pitch, because I just wanted to make sure. But it is good that you know who you're talking to. In your research of that publication, please don't put dear editor, and please, for the love of everything, do not put dear sir. I can't tell you that how quickly that will get you deleted if you just put dear sir, especially when you're speaking to a female editor, and there are many of them. Make sure you have the name correct. Make sure you spell the name correctly. And she's already said they're a little informal. So I did not say Mr. or Miss. I did Megan and Marissa because it kind of matched the tone of the publication and the tone of their pitch. And this was my hook. Grass isn't green, it's wasteful. It costs time, money, and energy. It's an endless cycle of planting, watering, and cutting. And you have to wonder, is it worth it? My husband and I don't think so. We're transforming our quarter-acre suburban lot into a paradise for the birds, the bees, our dog, and our 4-year-old son. We're practicing green infrastructure at home. I hit a lot of their verticals in that hook. One of their verticals is family. I talk about our son and my husband. One of their verticals is dog. So of course I'm going to mention that I have a dog. And one of their verticals is the environment. So my whole pitch wraps around that as well. So I tried to keep the tone light, but not fluffy, and match that tone in that pitch. So, does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Next, what is the next layer after the hook. So it's still an extension of the hook, but it's where you get a little more detail as to what you intend to write. So right away, I tell her, in a reported essay, I'd like to bring readers along on our journey through planting pollinator gardens, installing rain barrels, and learning how our trees mitigate stormwater runoff, all while providing data as to exactly why it's important to human health and better for the environment. That's the reported part. Don't worry, we still leave green space to run and play because that's important too. Spoiler alert, the secret is clover. So I keep that light tone, but I also say that I am going to pack it with quality data and content to back that up. That's my next paragraph. That's my what. I see a few questions rolling at the top. Anything I need to address right now, Jenny?
There are a few. We had one comment that they felt like the questions are distracting from your presentation to maybe hold them. But do you want to go ahead and take a couple?
Oh, okay. Well, I just I can keep going. We can save them to the end. That's fine. I just don't want people to be lost for the rest of the presentation if it's a question that's pertinent now. So thank you for that. I'll take that feedback and I'll hold on and I'll keep going. So why now? Every editorial calendar is thought out, especially when you're looking at a print publication, which Subaru Drive is a print publication. It is, yes, their articles go online, but their content is slated for, they do 3 a year. So not even quarterly, they do 3 a year. And they will need this pitch ahead of time, and they will need to know why it's important for when. So I specifically addressed, this would make a great Earth Day piece, but it's relevant anytime during the growing season. That gives myself a little wiggle room because, oh no, they already have Earth Day slated, but hey, what about July? We can still talk about this in July. We really don't want to talk about this in December or February, but you know what? Anytime from April to October, this is game. So I want them to understand why I'm pitching this now. Why me? This is when you tell them your professional affiliations. This is when you tell them your experience. This is basically my bio. I'm not going to read it to you. I think Jenny already covered it in the beginning. Now, don't panic if you don't have a large bank or bio to pull from, because especially for a reported essay or in any kind of submission that you're going to pull from your personal experience, you can use the fact that you're a gardener, you're an avid gardener. I'm a master gardener, or I am, whatever you're going to be writing about, however you are an expert in that field. It doesn't have to be a degreed expert. It can be, I'm a parent and I'm going to tell you about my experience with depression of my 12-year-old, and I'm going to interview these experts to underscore my experience. That's 100% legit. You can put that you are a freelance writer and put what clips you do have. It's very chicken and egg, you need clips to get a job, but you need a job to get clips. So it takes a while, but you'll get there. And use what you have, and whatever reason you are pitching this needs to be something that's dear. You need to want to write about it for a certain reason. Tell them that this is why I'm going to write about this right now. So there's the why me. So this is the assignment that came out of it. And it's not the full assignment. I just gave you the first intro. In my resource sheet, I gave you the link to the entire assignment letter so you understand what that looks like. But so you can tell that we love this pitch. The theme for Drive Spring issue is Love the Earth, so it's spot on. We'd like to see, as you suggested, a reported essay that brings the reader into your first-person narrative of transforming your yard, but also informs us via quotes from expert sources about ways in which grass is wasteful, why the options you mentioned are better for the environment, as well as our own health. I also like to bring out the why now angle. Are there statistics that more people are ditching grass, new research or insight into why grass isn't ideal? Any of these options, anything to make this feel fresh and timely. So yes, they want to know the why now part, and they want it to be tied somehow to something relevant that's right now, if that makes sense. This is the timeline. I wanted to show you this timeline because sometimes it's very long and sometimes it takes a while, especially for these publications that go to print still. You're talking about, I mean, it's a year. This was the tweet happened December 27th, 2019. We're in 2021 now. I pitched on January 4th of 2020. So just a couple weeks later after the holiday. And the editor responded January 21st saying that, hey, we're talking about this in our editorial meeting, but we're interested. We'll get back with you. I didn't hear back from her until October 8th. And the pandemic hit, everything came to a screeching halt. So I understand that. I did not follow up. I did not badger her. I did not anything. She told me it was being considered in their editorial meeting, and I let it lay because I didn't, the pandemic did hit, and I did need to be respectful of the fact that they are working on an annual editorial calendar. And by the time June rolled around, honestly, I was deep into writing about COVID myself. So the fact that this assignment didn't come through was kind of on the side burner because I had other things on my plate. So when this came in October, I had planned to pitch it again later that year because, again, I had an Earth Day slant and I had a spring slant. So pitching it in July was not going to help me when editors are working on December. So I waited a little bit and she got back with me. It is slated for publication in the spring 2021 edition of Subaru Drive, and it will also be on their website. So that is a long lead time. And you need to keep that in mind if you plan to pitch anyone that is going to go to print. And the big glossies still go to print. These corporate publications like Subaru Drive, still many of them go to print. But as you'll see in my next example, the online publications will be a much quicker turnaround. So this is Healthline is number 2. Healthline is number 2. And again, found it on Twitter. Writing community seeking pitches from writers living with psoriatic arthritis. Interested in point of views about the experience of living with your condition, as well as tip-based content, email and bio. Then Sonia asks, can you share your rates? Hi, Sonia, rate is $200 to $250 per article, accepting pitches on a rolling basis, but looking to form relationships with PSA writers ASAP. I included that part in there because that is super important to know that she is not just looking for a one-shot deal. She is looking for people with this condition who can write for her on an ongoing basis. So always read the thread, always read the comments, because that will absolutely shape your pitch and give you an understanding of what the editor's looking for. A lot of times they'll tweet out their favorite articles or their most recent articles that match the flavor or the tone. And if you read through those threads, they are invaluable to you. So I'm going to do something a little different here than I did the last pitch, because I'm going to show you something that drives me insane. Don't do this, please, 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 please. When you see a tweet of an editor who has given you a lead to their publication, please don't reply. I've just emailed you. I'm really interested. And oh, I just sent you an email, and there's so many that this is just 3. If you go onto this thread, you will see that there are at least 8 or 10 people in the very similar things. And I think people do this because they think that the editor will remember them when it gets to their email box. They will remember you, but they'll remember you as the person who didn't know how to pitch because you were trying to engage with them on Twitter. And the reason, but you're like, hey, wait a minute, she answered Sonia. See that little blue check mark next to Sonia? Sonia Weiser writes for the New York Times. She's a freelance writer, but she is also the person who runs a leads newsletter. And she's in the resource sheet that I gave you. She charges a monthly fee, and she is one of these people that calls through Twitter and publishes a newsletter to freelance writers with leads that she found on Twitter and elsewhere. So yes, she responded to Sonia because she knows that Sonia is doing her job of putting these pitches together. But if you notice, she didn't respond or like or anything to anybody else. So it just kind of hangs there when you do that. And I was trying to think of a good like equivalent. And I think the equivalent would be is if you went to a lecture and there were 300 people in the room, and you were watching a speaker on the stage, and she happened to throw out there that, oh, and we've got this fellowship coming up in April that we're going to be doing stuff. And you stood up in the middle of that room and went, I love that. I'll do it. It's not the time. It's not the place. It's unprofessional. Get your thoughts together, do your homework, and then pitch her according to what she has asked you to do, either in that tweet or in the writer's guidelines. Every once in a while, you'll see them where they say DM me, and they'll open their direct mail in Twitter so you can send them the pitch that way because they don't want to give you their email address. But the more professional you are and the more you follow the directions that are put in front of you, the more you will rise to the top. Am I saying that nobody ever responds to these responses on Twitter? Of course not. You'll see them. If you go through there, somebody will ask a question. Usually it's a question about the pitch, and then they'll clarify or respond like Sonia did. But I've just emailed you very interested, or I can't wait to hear back from you. I've got a bunch of ideas and I just sent them to you. No, let her see the email, or let the editor, him or her, see the email, and let them respond to you and use the protocol in front of you, because that will flag you as a professional. I hearted it. That's all I did. I hearted it so I could find it later, and that's it. Sometimes I retweet it, especially if it's something I think that other people, it's a big magazine, it's a big publication world. I'm always down for sharing leads, so I'll retweet a lot of them too, because then I can find them again easily. All right, so now that we've got our lead, next step, I'm going to research this publication. What do their point of view look like? And what I did, I'm going to go back over to here because I pulled one thing I found on Healthline is they do a lot of WebMD stuff, like WebMD type stuff. They're like the competitor, where they'll lay out the disease, the symptoms, treatments, things like that. But as a point of view, I didn't know what a point of view piece, an opinion piece would look like for Healthline. So when I ran in the search right here, I just put and I put like my illness. I don't have rheumatoid arthritis, I have psoriatic arthritis, but I know that we're in the same family. And I wanted to find what other people had written about other diseases in the point of view, because I want to see how it laid out. And what I learned was when I put in the search, and I just put like, I wish I knew, or I feel this way, and it would pull it up because you're within the site. And I found that listicles are big for their point of views. So it's basically, this is how I feel, but this is also tips for you or 7 things. I found a lot of, so then I started searching and I'd put 7 things or I put 5 things. Let me see here. Let's see, there's 6 signs. Let me try to just put 5 things see what comes up. 5 things I wish I knew before I went vegetarian. 5 things I learned after my hepatitis C diagnosis. 5 simple rules for amazing health. Listicles are the name of the game for Healthline, apparently, when it came to point of view. A lot of these had 5, 3, 7. Just pick a number and you'll find articles that are like that. So when you're researching a publication and trying to wrap your brain around what you're going to do, try and think of it in that term. How would I search to get the products I want, the results that I want? So my search for Healthline looked very different than my search for Subaru. Instead of going through the verticals, I wanted to know what their point of view pieces looked like, since that's what she was asking for. So let's go back to here. Still read bylines and bios. Who is it? It's funny because I read one of the articles I read was from Christina Wright, who is an editor that I worked with at another publication, Your Team magazine. She does a lot of their online editing. So I was like, oh, I know her. You might recognize some people. And always make sure, what have they covered in the past year? What have they covered in that vertical in particular? What are your evergreens? Your evergreens, or what do they always cover? Your vertical means their category. That's their vertical. Those are the kinds of things that you want to look for. And this is before you craft your pitch. I think so many people think they have a great idea and they fire it off without doing the research on that publication and what they run and what their tone is like, that they will, they'll pitch something that was just run. And if you have an idea and it's something they just did 6 months before, you better differentiate in your pitch and call out that, hey, I know you ran this article, link to it, but I would like to talk about this because I feel like it wasn't fully developed. Don't criticize something they already published, because why would they hire you if they just criticize something they edited 3 months ago? Don't do that. You're not going to be able to do it better. You're not going to be able to do it smarter. You need to frame your pitch that doesn't insult the editor and say, hey, I took a look at this article and I'd like to expand on this point in a separate article, and here's why. If you're going to do something that covers something they've already covered, make sure you differentiate what your idea is and how that's going to serve them and their readers. Okay, elements of this pitch: headline, hook, what, why now. I crossed that out, and I'll show you why in a second, and why me still. Yeah, and I spent a little more time on the why me because she mentioned ongoing opportunities, and I want her to see where my experience will match up with those ongoing opportunities. So this was a really boring headline, but if you go back to her tweet, she is specifically looking for writers who have psoriatic arthritis. And that's a pretty tough matchup, considering it's a pretty small population of people in general who have this diagnosis. It's not a very popular diagnosis, for lack of better phrasing. And it's going to be even harder for her to find a writer who has this diagnosis. So I just put pitch psoriatic arthritis because I wanted her to know, oh, this is what I'm looking for. Let me see what she's got. Okay, this was my hook. And I mentioned right away that I'm a writer because, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go back because I want to show you why I did that. Because in all of these people who didn't do this right, I learned a lot from them. They really helped me pitch, and I appreciate those people who don't know how to follow the rules. Because what I did was I clicked on every single one of these people who responded to her pitch, and I saw if they had writer in their profile bio. Because if you are a professional freelance writer, your bio on Twitter better say freelance writer. If it doesn't, then you need to put it in there, because you are a professional freelance writer. And if I'm clicking on there to see what their bios are on Twitter, how much you want to bet the editor is too. So I clicked on in every single one of these, except for this guy. I mean, the guy in the middle here, Euro, I think is how you say his name. Sounds like he's a reporter and he wanted to interview somebody because he probably was smart enough to do the same thing I did and looked at all these other people to find out, oh, they all have the diagnosis, but none of them are actually writers. So how about I interview one of them? And that's not a bad idea. He shouldn't have put it on Twitter. He should have put it in an email, but that was not a bad idea, just bad protocol on how he did it. And so these guys were not writers. So the first thing in my hook is I read your tweet looking for first person experiences living with PSA. I am an award-winning freelance writer and was diagnosed with PSA in 2010. That tells her I have 10 years of experience with this illness. And then I went through, after going through the required fails of methotrexate and steroids, I began biologic therapy and it was a complete game changer. Depending on what you'd like written for your readers, we can go in a few different directions. I went from bedridden for almost a year while I failed methotrexate to slowly working myself back to being a functional member of my family. So I wanted her to see both sides of it. And I also, as a person with chronic illness, I also don't want her to view me as somebody who is not going to be able to follow through because I'm so sick. And that's horrible. And I know that I know that's an insecurity on my part, and that's not the reality. That is just, I think that there are stigmas still out there with people who have chronic illness and mental health issues that I wanted to protect myself from that stigma. And maybe that was wrong, but I wanted to put that up front right away that I am an award-winning freelance writer. I can do this. So that was why I led with that as my hook. And then the what. So I'm not going to, the entire pitch again is in the links that I gave you in the resource sheet, but I gave her a little bit more about myself. I won't read this. You guys can read this. Because again, this was less about I'm going to write X for you and more about responding to a general inquiry of, hey, I'm looking for writers with this diagnosis. And I wanted to meet that criteria so we could work together on what she had in mind. She obviously already has something in mind for an assignment. And me pitching her something very specific was not going to land me what she had in her mind. So I wanted to make sure I covered all of my bases. And because I did, if you see the end, it says my biggest takeaways in this health journey are, which means what do you think I did next? I listed. Why? Because when I did my research on healthline.com, what did I see? Lists, which tells me what? She likes them. So I went ahead and bullet pointed a few things that I could address in articles for her. Because if that's the way she's editing and that's the way she's placing content, I want to communicate with her in the tone and the fashion that she has exemplified before. And that is why your research is so important. Okay, why me? My yes, it's got my stuff on there as far as my professional stuff, but I as you see right here at the top, I introed it with I plunged into freelance writing and working from home, and it has served me well. Again, underscoring the fact that I'm here for this, I can do this, which brings me to my professional credits. And then I end with an essay on PSA. Can go a myriad of different directions, and I'm open to discussing what would work best for Healthline as a one-shot essay or series of columns. Also, I talk a little bit more about my journey on my website, and then I link. Your pitches, if you notice in all of the why me sections or both of the why me sections, all of these little underlines means I link. And please, in your pitches, link. If you are calling out specific clips, which you should, if it suits and it matches what they're looking for, you want to link to them. Make it easy for them to see what you have written about and what you can do. Also, don't just link to your bio, but you want to link to any research, especially if you are relying on and pulling from specific research, then yes, link to it. Nobody's going to steal it. Everybody knows it's public information. A Google and she'll be able to find it. So you don't have to worry about her stealing your idea. You're saving her the Google. And that 5 minutes of her time is worth it. And it will, again, every tiny little thing you do to make yourself more professional and to make it easier for that editor to work with you, the more likely you are to not only land this assignment, but to continue to work with this publication for the long haul. All right. Here is my timeline for this particular assignment. And where's the assignment? I went right over the assignment. I apologize. My hands got too clicky. Okay, the assignment. Thanks so much for reaching out and sharing a bit about yourself and your work. I'm looking for someone to write the piece below. See, she had something very specific in mind, and I could tell. It seems like your perspective could be a great fit. And this is TK, things I wish. I think TK stands for to know. Things I wish people understand about psoriatic arthritis. If somebody else thinks TK stands for something else, let me know, because I did not quite know that. This is a pretty straightforward POV piece. I'd love for you to start with some information about how folks living with PSA often feel misunderstood, and then dive into a list of 5 to 9 things you wish people understood about the condition and how it affects your life, offering up a paragraph or so of context for each. So boom, she wants a list. And guess what? That sounds an awful lot like 7 things, the truth about rheumatoid arthritis, 7 things I wish people understood about my chronic illness. That is the assignment that she sent me just for psoriatic arthritis, my diagnosis. So it was a great thing that I went ahead and researched Healthline, because bam, look at this. I have somebody who has already written something published for them, and I know exactly what it looks like, and I know exactly what she's looking for. And this is who wrote it. Eileen Davidson, Vancouver-based invisible illness advocate and ambassador with the Arthritis Society, also a mother and the author of Chronic Eileen. Follow her here. Perfect. I knew exactly she is a writer, she's an author, and she has this diagnosis. So again, your research will always, always do right by you. All right, let's look at that timeline now. Okay. So she called out this was just this year, January 21 of 21. I pitched it on the 27th. Now, I didn't see it on the 21st. I saw it like on the 25th. So I turned it around in about 2 days. I honestly thought about this one for a day before I even pitched, because I'm like, do I really want to, this is not an area that I've written about as a freelancer. So it was more personal. It was harder for me to be that other layer of vulnerable, if that makes sense. So before you pitch, especially if it's a personal or point of view, make sure you're really willing to go there, because it's not easy to go there and be that vulnerable, regardless what you're talking about. So I pitched on the 27th. The assignment was received. She turned it right back around, received on the 28th, and she wanted it by February 5th. And it's slated for publication. And it'll show up. I'm hoping she sends me the link. I Google every once in a while to see if it pops up, but I'm sure she'll send me the link. So that was a timeline for that. There's always paperwork. Usually you sign a contract, you sign that kind of thing. And writers' agreements are very diverse, and they're very different according to the publication. You'll need to send a W-9, all of those types of things. But for full disclosure, Subaru Drive was $1 a word. It was a 1,000-word assignment. And this was, and as you saw in the assignment, oh, it's not on there, but it's on the link, that she wanted between 800 and 1,200 words, and it was $250. So that was pretty much straight point of view. There was no research involved. So that gives you an idea. The reported pieces always pay more. Always, always, always. If you want to make more money writing articles, reporting always pays more, because it takes more time. It takes more time, and it takes a little more putting it in there. So that makes sense. All right, here we go. Here's the bad news. Brace yourself. It's going to happen. Like this snowstorm that we're in right now. For those of you over here in the Midwest with me. Rejection. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen a lot. But you will narrow your rejections by doing the things that I just told you, and walking through all of those steps and ideas. It's not personal. And I know a million people tell you that, and you get better at taking rejection. What I tend to do if I have an idea, especially, is if it's not coming from a call for submission, and sometimes a call for submission is what gets you going, it's what inspires you. And other times you start with an idea and you want to go find the right fit for that publication. Make a list of pie in the sky is up here. Oh, the New York Times, right up here, all the way down to where you think it'll probably land no matter what, if you have that list. As long as you keep in mind the why now part of it, and as long as it's timely, and if you run out of time before you get all of your rejections back from here, save it until it's relevant again. There's hardly anything that's original and that's gonna not happen again, or that you can't tie it or hang it on something else that's going on or another time of year. Patient, you gotta be patient. Patience is a big thing, especially when you're dealing with these people who have a 1-year lead time, like Subaru Drive. Tell you what, it was really nice though, because that $1,000 check came right around Christmas time. So it was worth waiting the 9 months for, because that really kind of helped out after 9 months of a pandemic and everything else. So hang in there. Rejection will happen. Don't let it get you down. All right, that resource sheet just for you. Let me pull it up here on the screen, since I think I have it right here. Resources you need. Here we go. Where do you find those leads? Yes, on Twitter. Of course on Twitter, but somebody else will do the work for you. Number one, I'll do the work for you. The NSNC, we have a membership newsletter for members only that comes out the 15th of every month. I'm working on this month's right now, and it's huge. I will put leads in there that are specifically for columnists and opinion writers. You're not going to find investigative reporting leads from me in here, because this caters to newspaper columnists and those who are interested in writing opinion and writing essays. So that newsletter, Sonia Weiser, the one that responded to that tweet that I said that was the only one that could respond to tweets, she has a newsletter, a weekly newsletter. It's $3 a month. She'll send it to you weekly. The link's on the resource sheet. Study Hall is another one. A lot of these leads will overlap between Sonia and Study Hall, but depending on when they land, pick one. Some will have more, like, for example, even though Sonia put that she wrote that question on the psoriatic arthritis pitch, it didn't come up in her newsletter. I don't know if she knew that it had already, she might have gotten a note and said, okay, I have enough, please don't, from the editor. The editor might have gotten bombarded, so it didn't land in there. I found that lead in the Study Hall newsletter. I got that lead there. And I looked out for it because I saw Sonia had posted on or responded to the tweet, but she never shared it, which means that by the time Sonia was ready for her newsletter to come out, that editor gave her a whoa Nelly. So I subscribe to both of these. Binder groups on Facebook. Sorry guys, these are just for those who identify as female, but these are all groups that are private, that if you click to them, you can answer questions to join. Sometimes you have to be invited. If you have to be invited, you can friend me on Facebook, send me a note, I'll invite you. And then you'll go through a couple of questions where they screen you, and then they'll let you in. But if you need an invite, let me know. I'm happy to invite you. Other useful databases. These, I'm telling you, you can read successful pitches before pitching a publication. This link will take you to, well, let's just take you there. Let's see. Show you what it looks like. All right, see this. This is great. They're alphabetical order. And these are people like me who submit their pitches. I submitted my my Subaru pitch here, and you can. These are all pitches that resulted in an assignment and what kind of assignment it was. Now, Bon Appetit, I'll tell you right now, my newsletter that's coming out on Monday, I have a lead from Bon Appetit. So this is reported. I think my lead is an essay, probably because it's for the NSNC. But search for your publication that you're going to pitch and see if you can find, or you can just browse. I think that's an awesome. It's always great to see examples of what's worked for somebody else. Guidelines. Tim, this guy has compiled a list of links of guidelines for publication, again, in alphabetical order. He's got 40 of them. This is a publication that pay 500 or more. Who pays writers? It's become very transparent in recent months and recent years to really see what writers are being paid aware and across the board, just because with the struggles of the industry, there are so many publications that ask for writers to write for free or for a pittance. And you don't want to get caught in that after you've already agreed to an assignment. That should be up front. Both of my assignment letters that I showed you today show you exactly how much you're going to be paid. Okay. And then these down here are all the links that for the full assignment and full pitch letter that I went over today. This bonus I want to point out here, it's from the NSNC. I wrote it last month. After you've landed that assignment, these are tips to follow with your editor to make sure everything goes smoothly with a new editor. And with that, I believe I am ready for questions. So I'm going to stop my screen share.
Thank you, Bonnie. That was great. First of all, I wanted to report that Sarah and Renee let us know that TK in publishing means to come.
Thank you.
To come.
What is it with, why can't we spell anything in our acronyms? I mean, DEC is DEK and the headline is HED. And I'm like, what is that? Thank you for that. I learned something new.
We have a bunch of questions, so we'll try to get through as many of these as we can. We have two that are similar.
A few minutes. I'm not going to cut everybody off at 1 o'clock. I'll answer as many as I can. And if you got to go, you got to go. That way we have it in the recording, unless Jenny, you have to run right at 1.
No, I'm good to stay a little bit as well.
Okay, great. Let's get started.
We have a couple of questions that are similar. We'll take these together.
Okay.
Pat asked, how do you find out the publication's tone? And then we have another attendee asking, do you have any tips for analyzing the voice of a publication to tailor your submission?
Well, sometimes it's right there in the guidelines, like with the Subaru Drive. They said they're light but not fluffy. They're, they kind of spell it out for you. And the only way you're going to find out about that tone is if you read the submissions. And a tone is one of those things that is very through perception. And as long as you are matching it somewhat, they'll help you shape that. And you don't want to confuse your writer's voice with the voice of the magazine. It's just like every social media has its own personality. Every publication has its own submission, its own personality. Facebook is not TikTok. They behave completely different, but they have the same objective. The same thing for a publication. Subaru Drive, their tone is not going to be the tone of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or even Your Teen magazine. They all have their own personality. And that's what I think of when I think of tone. When you're looking to match a tone, you're looking to gauge the personality of the publication and try and match that while infusing your own voice. It takes some practice, and it's a little confusing sometimes, but as long as you're not sending the Wall Street Journal something bright and buffy, when you're talking finance and something serious, then I think you're going to be okay. It's just, that's why your research is important. Read examples, try to find examples that matches what similar in the same vein of what you're trying to do and see and go from there. I hope that answers.
Great response. Thank you. David would like to know, can you pitch the same article to 2 publications, and what if both of them say yes?
So you can, it's called simultaneous submission. Some say no, don't please. And some say, sure, we'll take them, but just let us know when it has been accepted. What I do is I stagger them. I give my favorite one a head start. So I am not going to wait 6 months to hear back from you. And actually, if the email that I got back, that I got in October from Subaru Drive is said, I am so sorry this took so long, and I understand if you place this someplace else, but if it's not placed, we're still interested. I'm like, $1 a word? Heck yeah, I'm gonna wait for Subaru. So that that happens. But let's say it's a straight essay, which means I'm submitting it. I'm not pitching it, because a lot of essay have to be submitted, not pitched. I start with, okay, New York Times, you get a 2-week head start. 2 weeks later, it's going out to the next person, because then at least the acceptance don't come in on top of each other. And if, let's say, the New York Times gets back with me, they usually, it's like the one time I've had a yes from the New York Times, it was 2 weeks later and they said yes. I said, right on. Then I can withdraw it from anywhere else, or I don't even withdraw it unless they get back to me, because a rejection, people don't tell you no, they just ghost you. You just don't hear from them. So I stagger it. Give your favorite one a head start, and then every 2 weeks send it to somebody new. That's what I would do.
Thanks, Bonnie. Linda is asking, if you find them on Twitter and you can't find their email on the publication, is it okay to direct message them?
No. That's so simple. You will find their email. Their email is usually in the bio, and a lot of their calls for submission will tell you, send me, my email's in the bio, or they will paste the writer's guidelines. If you see a call for submissions that doesn't have a way to contact them, read the comments, read the whole thread, read everybody's questions, because I guarantee you at least 5 other people have already asked them that. Let other people do that. And if you subscribe to a newsletter and they pull that, when these newsletters that I just showed you, they will have the contact in there. Like, I will not give you a lead in my NSNC newsletter without giving you the email of who to contact.
Thanks. One person asked, Kathy asked, can we get the written material, any written material, emailed later, and that they thought the material is great.
Oh, thank you. Written material emailed later. I'm sorry, I don't understand the first part of that question.
Maybe like I know you provided the resources, but will you be providing the slides or?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I will email everyone the slides, and I will also email you the resources link once again, so they're all together. Yes.
You used the term vertical. What did you mean by that?
Vertical is category. So the New York Times is going to have their parenting vertical, and they're going to have their finance vertical, and they're going to have their politics vertical. That's what that means.
Thanks. Rini would like to know, how far ahead did you offer the pitch for Earth Day, and have you already done interviews reporting on the piece before you pitched it?
Well, since it was a reported essay, I had done all the research and the expert stuff prior, because I'd already done it in my own backyard. And I also, so this is another, I guess, tip and trick for the freelancing. Earlier in 2019, I wrote a green infrastructure article for in Ohio. It was a water quality investigative piece I had written for Ion, Ohio, on the Ohio River. And I had done so much research on that. And then I did that article. And then over the summer, I installed my own rain barrels. I learned a lot. I installed my own rain barrels. I put my gardens in, and I got solar panels on my roof, and I started putting clover in our lawn. So what I did was, there was only one new person I interviewed for that. And that was about the clover lawn, because I didn't interview anybody for that. But I was able to use old interviews that were just 6 months old from researchers that I spoke to on that, and rolled them into there. So that's where your personal essays and your reported essays in particular are valuable. If you write an article that you have interviewed and it's a reported piece, and it either inspires you to do something in your own life, or it matches something that you've done in your own life, absolutely roll that together, get paid twice for the same interview.
That's great. What are your thoughts on including links to previously published pieces in the pitch email? Is muck rack preferred?
I always give option. Yes, please put links in your pitching email, links to specific articles that you feel matches what they're looking for. And then I always put a tag at the end that says, you can view my full portfolio in Muck Rack or on my website here. And I give both of those links so they have that opportunity.
This is a related question. Is it okay if your clips aren't on the same subject you're pitching, or should you leave them out if they're not?
I think it's fine, especially if you're just starting out and you have a small bank of clips to work with. It's always great if you're pitching a health article to attach some sort of health. And it's always interesting to see what an editor will latch onto, because I push them to my website, which has my portfolio on it as well as Muck Rack, I can see what they clicked on and just deductive reasoning. And I was really interested to learn that when this Healthline editor went to my website, the articles that she pulled up, one of them was a parenting article I had done for Northeast parenting publication. I mean, a small regional publication, but it was an 800-word piece on clumsiness in kids and when you should be worried about motor skills. And I was surprised that was one that she clicked on, but it showed her that I could write tight in 800 words about a health issue. And so you never know. So yes, give her one or two examples or him one or two examples, but also click to your full portfolio so that you can, so they have options of looking for what to read.
And would like to know, how do you handle it if you finally receive an assignment and when you receive it, you're no longer available to complete it by their deadline?
Oh, see, I don't think I make it happen. That's the hard thing. If you're not able to complete it by their deadline, you can talk to them. If it's been forever and they've given you the assignment, negotiate with them and ask for a couple of more days or a week. See what if they're online, their deadline might be a little bit more massageable, if that's a word. So for example, this Healthline article is due February 5th. I turned it in February 2nd because I always try to be early on my first assignment with a new editor, because we got to have more editing to do because we've never worked together and all of that kind of thing. And I understand that. And I want them to know I understand that. But let's say something happened, I fell ill, whatever. I could just say, hey, Friday the 5th it was a Friday. What's the difference between 5 o'clock Friday and 8 o'clock Monday? I would ask until Monday, but I would definitely, and I would just say, hey, can I have a few more days? Be really cautious if you ever have any issue, whether it's with editing, whether it's with your pitch or accepting the assignment. Do not lay out your sob story. Don't say, oh, there's a snowstorm and all this and that. Just say, hey, can I have a couple more days to get this finished up? I'm almost finished, or I need to, if it's source dependent, saying I'm waiting to hear back from one more source and I'd like to tie this up, but I can do that by Monday. Anything else that you tell them is going to sound like an excuse. Don't. Just stick to the assignment, stick to the facts, stick to what you need to get done, and really bite your lip when you're going to tell them because you're having a bad day or you're having something came up or what have you, and be prepared for that to be your last assignment. Sorry, I know that's harsh.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Pat asked, is it a deal breaker if you don't have a website?
No, not at all. There's a lot of people who don't have websites, don't have social media. They write well, they write on time, they hit their deadline. It's okay. If you do not have a website, it would be beneficial to you to have a muck rack. And muck rack is basically an online portfolio. Once you sign up, it's free. It's free mainly. They charge PR people, but not you. But they will actually pull stuff for you. I go onto muck rack to see when stuff's landed or see who's picked up something, if it's been picked up by another publication, because from the wire service who picked it up where. And I will find stuff that I had no idea was out there, had no idea that they had picked it up until I went to muck rack. So yeah, it's I'll put it in the chat in case you're not familiar, muckrack.com. But yeah, check that out. That would probably be your best.
Another attendee says, hello, and thank you for this. Is there a prescribed word count for articles, or is that dictated by the topic or editor?
Yes, that is dictated by the topic or editor. There's things that fall in categories, like an op-ed will never, not never, an op-ed will rarely be longer than 800 words. Service pieces are typically about 1,400 words. Your investigative pieces are probably going to be more like 3,000 words, or feature articles 3,000 words. So you start to learn the categories, but let them tell you what the word count is, unless you're submitting an already completed essay. And even then, that's part of your researching your publication. If you're reading your publication to research it before you pitch, and it's funny, I used to like camp out in the periodical section of the library way back when. But now I will literally copy the article and paste it on a blank page just to get the word count, so I understand what I'm looking at before I pitch. I'm like, okay, we're talking 1,000 words. Because how do you know if $250 is worth it? If they want you to write 3,000 words, it's, you gotta kind of judge it that way. But everything you can find out on your own by being just a little extra, then do that.
This question that came in is really asking about linking your articles to your website. Mm-hmm. It's the newspaper in which my weekly column appears has a paywall. In order to read most of the articles, would it be appropriate to link it to your blog?
If the articles appear there, yes. They understand paywalls, and most editors, they get that there's a paywall. If there's something specifically that you want them to read and it's not on your website or your blog, PDF it. Don't send it as an attachment. This is where I'm going to get techie on you. Don't send it as an attachment. Attachments they're no good. What I would do is I would PDF it. I would upload that PDF to Google Docs, and I would send them the link. I would link it to the Google Docs where the PDF lives, so they don't have to download anything onto their hard drive, because they won't.
Thanks for letting us know that. Mm-hmm. When you're filling out a W-9, do editors care whether you use your business entity as the payee, or do they require you to use yourself as an individual?
That's a question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're obviously, they're yet to get paid.
Okay. I am not an LLC. I am not a business. I'm a sole proprietor. So every W-9 I send is just my name and social security number. I'm not sure. I would just ask that editor. If I would send it however you want to send it for your business and your taxes. And then if there's an issue, I would certainly think the editor would communicate with you. And if they haven't, then I would follow up and say, hey, was there an issue with my paperwork? Not understanding, do you need me to submit a new invoice? Something. One of the things that really surprised me, I helped my daughter get published for the first time, and honor student, all this stuff. She knows all of these things, and she wrote something, and then she looked at me and she goes, so when did my check come? I was like, when you send an invoice. And she goes, what's an invoice? And I'm like, okay, here we go. You will not get paid if you do not invoice anybody. It's not going to magically show up. Even Healthline, I have to submit a PO. So you've got to make sure you know how to get paid and communicate with your editor on how to get paid. And if they don't have any communication with you other than a writer's contract and a W-9, you send them an invoice.
Another question related to pay. Anne would like you to clarify us. Did you get paid before the Subaru piece was published? And if so, is that normal? Is that usual?
So yes, I did get paid. I got my check. The Subaru PC isn't even out yet. It's going to be in the spring issue of the magazine. I got my check in December. So they paid on submission, and once we agreed on all edits, then I could invoice them. Those were their terms. Now, most of the publications that I write for will pay on publication 30 days after publication. So they will not even, and some of them with 60 days after publication. I still send them the invoice, and I wasn't even going to send the invoice until after the Subaru article ran, but the editor said, go ahead, you can get paid now, go ahead and submit it so it's in our system. Perfect, done.
And would also like to know any suggestions on cold pitching where the editor is not posted. They're looking for something. Is it worth the time?
Cold pitching, absolutely. You still do your research. You still do your darndest to find that editor's email and name. And editors change so quickly that they change quickly. They shuffle around in the organization and everything. Do whatever you can to find that information on their website. I know, especially like with the New York Times or Washington Post or bigger ones, that it'll just be submission at, or Modern Love at New York Times, or whatever you're pitching. Dig around, do your best to find the editor's name. That goes a long way.
Renee, thanks for your input. Renee says, do you have a Venmo so I can send you more money? Because this was worth a lot more than $15. I'm serious.
You know what? You can become a member of the NSNC if you're not already. Become a member of the SPJ if you're not already, and just keep coming back to our workshops. That's great. I love that you feel it's worth a lot more money. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Kate would like to know how much of your work time would you say goes for pitching and research for pitching relative to the time spent on researching and writing the pieces?
That really depends on the publication. So like the Healthline article, I didn't spend a lot of time researching the publication, maybe an hour. And then I sat down on the weekend when my husband was home and hammered out a draft over like two hours. Then I went back and edited it again later. That wasn't very much time at all. Now, an investigative piece, that is a lot of research. I just had a piece in Ohio about a prosecuting attorney here in Ohio. That was an article that the editor actually ended up paying me double what we originally contracted, because it ended up being a 6-month-long investigation. So always do your best work, always keep digging, because you never know what's going to come out of it. And that editor trusts me now.
Generally speaking, Suzette would like to know, how do you bring up money if it isn't listed on the website or otherwise? Is it better to wait until you get an assignment?
I usually wait till I get the assignment, because if I'm invested in researching the publication, that's where that database in the resource system, that who's pays what, look them up, because writers are talking and writers are sharing what they got paid when. So if you go on that resource list that I gave you and click on the who pays what link, and you can look in there to see if they're in there. If they're not in there, then it's a gamble. You just have to decide if it's in the assignment. And if they give you the assignment and they say, I want you to do this for free, there is no shame in saying, never mind. Do not ever work for free unless you absolutely feel like it is going to further your career in a way that is beneficial. We cannot set the precedent that we are volunteers for for-profit publications.
Another attendee would like to know, related to pay, do op-eds pay?
No. I'll dial that back a little bit. Some op-eds pay. The New York Times will still pay you. The Washington Post, I'm not sure. The LA Times, I'm pretty sure they'll still pay you for an op-ed. CNN will pay you for an op-ed. Your local newspaper will not. I serve on the editorial board of the Cincinnati Enquirer as a volunteer, because I am on the board. and my op-eds that I contribute to the Cincinnati Enquirer do not get paid. And I understand that going in as a person who has volunteered to serve on the editorial board as a community member, that what I contribute to them will not get paid. But that said, that has been my foot in the door for so many other opportunities that it has been worth my time. And I have also been able to place reprints with them that were for niche publications that now give me a larger voice. So you really have to weigh what is beneficial for you. And like I said, if you are going to give somebody something for free, make sure that it is furthering your career in some way.
Great information, Bonnie. Do you have any tips on finding sources to interview and how to approach them?
Yes. And actually, we are going to be talking about the NSNC is doing a virtual conference in April 16th and 17th. And my session for that conference is exactly that topic: where to find your experts and how to tap into your local researchers and university experts for that. So it looks like Suzette put that in the chat for us. So yes, and I will expand on that at our conference, and I hope you'll attend.
Anne wanted to chime in. She asked about if you're not able to complete an assignment by the deadline. She wanted to add to that. What she meant is they finally offered an assignment, but she's traveling during that time, so she won't be able to take it. How do I keep the future options open?
If you know any writers that you trust, that you know will knock it out of the park, give them somebody and work it out. What I would say is, you know what, I really hate that this is a conflict for me and I'm traveling, but here's my friend Sarah, and she is a rock star writer, and I know that she will take care of you and take on this assignment if you would like her to. If you want to assign it to someone else, I understand. Replace yourself. It's just like management. It doesn't matter if you're running an ice cream store or you're running a freelance writing business. If you are going to step away, move on, then always have somebody underneath or next to you that you can hand it to and know that they'll do a good job, because that's your name.
Deborah says this has been great. Her question is, how many hours do you put into the pitch? You touched on this previously a little bit, but do you devote a specific part of your day or week exclusively to crafting pitches, or is it more random? How many pitches do you send out a week?
Well, I have a 5-year-old, so it's totally random. And we're in a pandemic, which makes it even more random. And so my pitching matches my time. Oh, there's a phone ringing in here, but that's okay. My pitching, it will match what time I have. If I already have 5 assignments on my plate for this month and I see a couple more deadlines for next month, then I will not pitch as much. But if I'm winding down, I'm wrapping up 3 or 4 assignments and I see that March is wide open, then yes, I'm going to ramp up my pitching accordingly. The great part of being a freelance writer and working for yourself is that you manage your time and you only want to take on what you can knock out of the park. I know I say that a lot, I'm sorry, but that's what you want to do. You want to manage your time and manage your business so that you are successful. Now, editors will come to me now because I've worked with them enough that they'll say, Bonnie, do you want this? Or this lead just came in and can you turn this around by next week? And I'll tell them, sure, yeah, I'll take it. And that will affect how many pitches I go out. I don't pitch as much as I used to because I do have regular clients and regular obligations. But when I see things cross my desk, like the Subaru Drive and this Healthline opportunity that I know is perfect for me, then I'm on it. And I'm on it right now.
What if you don't have any clips?
Then lean on your other expertise. Like I was saying, when you write, that might be the place where you may want to volunteer to get it. I still have my first clip laminated. I was going to the YMCA and I heard like through the grapevine that they were getting ready to put in a splash pad in the water park. So I went to my community newspaper and I said, hey, can I write this for you? It was the community press back when we still had a community press. And they let me do it and they ran it. And that was my first clip. And I tell you, I sent that thing to everybody. And that was back when I had to mail them a photocopy because I was pitching via mail or attaching it via email. And sometimes that's what you have to do to get your foot in the door. But if you are also an expert in your field, if you are a parent, if you are a gardener, if you have a chicken coop and you love chickens, whatever it is that is your jam, that is what you lean on when you're pitching. And if your pitch is very tight and it matches their tone, they will give you a chance. They might write it on spec. They might say, I'll publish it if I like it after I see it, but that's up to them. That's up to them, but keep going. All right, it's 1:23. How many more questions do we have left here, Jenny?
I think we have a couple more,
Okay.
maybe 2 more. I think we can probably get to those if that sounds
All right,
good to you.
2 more. Yes, 2 more and we'll call it a day.
Do you have a system for tracking your submissions, invoice payments, etc.?
Yes, I keep in a spreadsheet. I use Google Sheets. I do everything in Google Drive. So I'll write down what my article is, who I pitched it, when, and then a yes or no column for if it was accepted. If it's a no, then the next column is the next person I pitched. That's how I track my submissions. And then in my, as far as invoicing goes, I need to do a better job at that. But basically, where all of my yeses, I make sure I send them invoices as soon as it lands, because I'm always looking for what lands, and so I can share it, because you promote yourself, you have to. So that's why I do that.
We'll wrap it up with this question. Linda says, I got paid on acceptance on an article a while back, but they ended up not publishing it. Can I put that in my portfolio anyway? You
can sell it again. It's yours. If you wrote it and if it was accepted and you wrote it and they decided to kill it, that belongs to you. That happened to me, and I'm going to tell you this story. This is a great story to wrap up with, because I pitched an article. Girls Inc. was doing a Girls Too movement right after the Me Too hashtag movement. And so I interviewed them, and I interviewed Dr. Christia, I forget her last name, but anyway, on why sexual harassment begins in middle school. And it was all about for that movement, and it was tied in. It was a reported, wasn't necessarily an essay, but I had a personal intro, and then it was an interview. It was accepted. I went through the entire editing with the publication. And then at the last minute, they felt like it was too similar to something else they had just published, and they killed it. So I had just been given a free editor and all of this, and I had a tight article. I put it on Medium because I have a Medium account, but then the Inquirer reached out to me. I didn't get paid for it because they didn't offer a kill fee, which was fine. But the good thing was the editor, the Inquirer reached out to me because Kevin Aldridge, our opinion editor, saw it on my Medium account, and he goes, "Can we run this?" And I said, "Sure." So I sent it over to him. They ran it, and it ended up winning the first place prize for the National Federation of Press Women's column editorial category for 2020. So I didn't get paid out of it, but it was nice. It got good exposure, and it got an award. So it reaffirmed the fact that even though it was killed, it was a quality article. So sell that bad boy again, or place it.
Thank you, Bonnie. And I think we can wrap up now with all those great answers to the good questions we received. And I just want to thank you again, Bonnie, for all the great information. We had a lot of positive feedback. I didn't really read all the comments about that, but everyone thought it was a great program. They really appreciated your insight and the information. So thank you for that. We also give a shout out to Cincy SPJ and NSNC for kind of hosting this program today. So everybody have a great day, and you can tune in to our Twitter or social media and keep up with the future programs. So thank you, Bonnie. Any closing words from you?
No, just thanks so much. I really appreciate everyone being here. Yeah, find me on social media. I'm at Writer Bonnie, basically on everything. And I'd be happy to connect with you guys in the future. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks.